Publishing for a second because I want to bring up a new exhibit for that. If I can approach the witness with that one.
Go ahead with what document again?
This will be 609.
All right.
And I'd ask permission to publish here in a minute after we've given him a chance to look at it. All right, I am showing you what's marked Exhibit 609. This is a page that was extracted here. Let me get the page numbers for you. The first page of that is a excerpt from the Wells Fargo records that you testified to yesterday as to Jesse's 8149 account. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And the second page that I am showing you is an excerpt from the money market account for Lynn in April, or ending in April 2018, correct?
Yes.
Now, this March 2018 time period has particular significance in this case because of the Goldman Sachs loan. Is that true?
Correct.
Yesterday, you spent a great deal of time testifying as to the Goldman Sachs loan, the documents that were used to apply for it, and the account statements that were provided with that loan, true?
Correct.
And your understanding is those were fake documents, correct?
Correct.
You testified that this loan was applied for through Lynn's name, correct?
Correct.
The money was set to be deposited in Jesse's account, correct?
Correct.
In going over Jesse's expenses for that month, you testified to a number of withdrawals. On your exhibit, it was marked as ATM withdrawals. Fair?
That's fair.
It was a little over $12,000.
Correct.
And after a brief sidebar, I think we established that that number included all of the withdrawals for that period, and the fact that they were labeled ATM did not necessarily denote that that was the true method of withdrawal. Fair?
That's fair.
I would ask for Exhibit 609 to be admitted and permission to publish that.
No objection.
I'll pull that one back.
Exhibit 609 is received and permission to publish granted.
And just to confirm, the account number at the top, since these second pages don't have the party names, that 8149 account is associated with Jesse's Wells Fargo checking account, correct?
As of March 8th of 2018, it's associated with both Jesse's and Lynn's name.
Right, thanks for that clarification. On the first page here, on 312, there is a deposit for $30,000, correct?
That's correct.
And that is the proceeds from the Marcus, the loan that was procured.
Yes.
Several days later, on the 15th, there's a withdrawal,
Yes.
and that was for approximately $12,000.
Correct.
And that was done at a branch or a store, correct?
That's what it says, yes.
You testified yesterday that you didn't know exactly how that money was spent, correct?
Correct.
And part of the reason is that it is a cash transaction. Is that true?
That's true.
Looking at Lynn's account statement for the same period for the money market checking account, what was her balance as of March 10th?
As of March 10th, it was $15,012.31.
And there was a deposit to her account of $9,900, correct?
That's correct.
That would have been a teller deposit in person?
That's correct.
And what date did that happen?
It states here March 16th.
And going back up to page 1, that would be the day after the withdrawal of $12,000 cash from Jesse's account, correct?
That's correct.
Is there anything significant that jumps out to you about the amount deposited here being $9,900?
There may have been a check in that amount.
And just from the perspective of investigating financial crimes, why would somebody deposit $9,900 as opposed to a $10,000 amount, the full $12,000?
Well, if it's under $10,000, it doesn't have to be reported.
So tell me more about what that means, what it means for a transaction to be reported.
Over $10,000, you need to report it to the IRS.
And when you say you need to report it, who does the reporting?
I believe the bank would do the reporting.
And what kind of information would they have to provide?
I believe they have to provide, I guess, where that money came from, why it was being deposited.
And that then becomes reportable for tax purposes, true?
True.
So somebody that wishes to deposit money without dealing with tax implications or questions as to where it came from would attempt to keep their transactions under 10,000, correct?
True.
Fair to say that we can't say for sure where this $9,900 deposit came from?
Oh, yeah, I absolutely cannot tell you where that money came from.
And we absolutely cannot say for sure where that $12,000 withdrawal from Jesse's account went?
I absolutely cannot say where that money went.
But it is also fair to say that Lynn was added to Jesse's BMO account or Wells Fargo account on March 8th,
That's what the records indicate, yes.
and the deposit to the account was on March 12th of that year, correct?
The deposit in,
From the Marcus account to Jesse's Wells Fargo account.
yeah, it lists here as the date, I guess it would be posted to that account would have been March 12th.
Fair to say that the approval for the loan and disbursement might not have occurred on the same day?
Correct.
And I believe the Marcus records that we looked at yesterday said that March 8th was the date that the disbursement was approved. Is that true?
That's true.
So the same day the Marcus loan is approved, she's added to Lynn's account. Fair?
That's fair.
Several days later, 12,000 of that 30 are withdrawn. True?
True.
Looking at Jesse's account, no other source could have contributed to that 12,000 but the 30 that came in. Is that true? And let me actually rephrase that. If we go to, let's say, the 6th of March, which is just a couple lines above my highlighted line, what is the ending daily balance for Jesse's account?
It is negative $474.58.
And so we had a negative account balance. The only deposit coming into the account in that time period was this loan, correct? I'm sorry, there's a second one I'm now seeing, a $1,700 paycheck as well. So those two transactions, the $30,000 loan proceeds and one paycheck for $1,756.93 it looks like on March 15th of that year, correct?
That's correct.
So the 12,000 had to be proceeds from the Goldman Sachs loan and or a portion of Jesse's paycheck, fair?
That's fair.
And just to reiterate, the $9,900 that was deposited, we cannot more particularly trace that money, but it was deposited in person. Are both those statements correct?
Yeah, it shows as a teller deposit, so it would have been deposited at the bank.
Okay. And we can stop publishing that. Let's switch tasks a little bit and discuss late 2018, the months leading up to Lynn's death. Now, I'm going to pull up two exhibits here again so that we can look at the records in late September. But as we previously established, her accounts remained below 30,000 through the entirety of the period from March through her death, correct?
Yeah.
And there were several transactions that you testified to yesterday, kind of at the end of August to the beginning of September, and then September at the time of her hospitalization through her death, true?
Yes.
And those were transactions you felt were suspicious for one reason or another?
Those were transactions, yes, that seemed irregular.
All right, bear with me for just a second while I pull these back up for us. now as to publish those again, we're back to exhibits 98 and 117. We're on page 112 of exhibit 98 and 140 of page 117. I'm sorry, we'll actually start at page 139 of 117. So once those are up, we can get into them. And I'd ask that we can just publish these to the jury now as well, since they're the same ones we've been going through.
That's fine. Go ahead.
All right. Is that now up on your screen while we wait for the jury's screens to
Yes.
kick in? Perfect. All right. Now, these are statements that both begin in August and end in mid-September, fair?
Correct.
And,
For the record, what year?
oh, I'm sorry, for the record, 2018.
Thank you.
And at this point, can you give us the balances as of September 10th for both of the accounts?
The 7601 account, the ending balance of September 10th of 2018 was $15,667.30. The ending balance for the 5336 account as of September 19th of 2018 was $2,118.82.
So about 17,600, fair,
That's fair.
between the two? And this was prior to Lynn entering the hospital?
The 5336 ends.
And looking at the activity on the 5336 account for withdrawals and other debits, there is no activity in this time period after September 12th, correct? And I can scroll down for you if you need me to.
That's correct.
Okay. So prior to her entry into the hospital, all activity on this account stopped as of this particular month, right?
Correct.
Now I'm gonna go down to the next one so we get the full picture. We're gonna jump to page 142 of Exhibit 117. And 114 of Exhibit 98. And what are the ending dates for both of these statements?
For the 7601 account, the ending date is October 10th of 2018.
And for the 5336?
For the 5336, the ending date is October 19th of 2018.
So both of these cover the period of time that Lynn was in the hospital through her death, true?
True.
And if we look at the withdrawals and other debits in both of these, what is the first date that transactions begin happening?
The first date that transactions begin happening are September 21st.
That was about 6 days after Lynn entered the hospital.
Yeah.
And you've been present for the entirety of the trial, correct?
Correct.
And so you were here when we heard testimony from the medical examiner's office
Yes.
and went through various medical records of Lynn during this period?
Yes.
And I'm going to pull up another exhibit to show you here in a minute. Let's stop publishing the current ones, please. And if I could publish that, let's publish both to the witness and the jury. This is Exhibit 541. It was introduced by the defense several days ago during the testimony of the medical examiner's office.
Go ahead.
Is that up on your screen?
Yes.
Right, and you recognize this as the medical records, certified medical records that we discussed, or that were discussed previously with the medical examiner, correct?
I know there were records that were provided, yes, to the medical examiner. I can't say I've ever reviewed them.
Judge, I'm going to object at this point to this document and this line of testimony based on a witness's lack of knowledge, and it's cumulative based on what the medical examiner already testified to.
Overruled. I don't have a question yet, so we'll see what they are.
I'm going to show you page 1. This is the certification of medical records. It's true that, or is it true that this set of records was provided by the state through subpoenas that were issued by investigators in this case?
I can't say I've ever seen the medical records other than sitting in court, but there is a certification on here. I can't say that these are the exact records. I don't know.
But you were here in court when these records were discussed and introduced, correct?
Correct.
You have no reason to believe these are anything but the records that we discussed and introduced in court previously?
I don't have a reason to believe that they aren't the same.
The exhibit's been received, and the jury can take notice of that. It was previously received.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm jumping ahead to page 517. Could we publish to the jury at this point?
Ask your question first.
My first question is, can you tell us the date and time of this record, the note in this record that I'm showing you?
I'm going to renew my objection that this is all cumulative to prior testimony.
Overruled.
This, it's notated, it says consults by Ann M. Thompson, 9/21/18 at 13:15.
So 9/21/18, the first date that we see some of these transactions occurring, fair?
Fair.
And I'm just scrolling here to get to the page that I want to discuss with you, since going up to the front made me lose it. Let me jump to it. All right. Now, just to reorient you, consults by Ann Thomas. This is the page before the one that we just looked at, correct?
Correct.
And this is still 9/21/18?
Yes.
All right, at this point, do you want me to continue?
For the record, you're on page 516 of the document. I just wanted to make a note of that.
At this point, I would ask to publish to the jury. I could continue asking if you would like more information as to where we're going.
No, go ahead. It's previously been received, so.
Okay. So you just testified several minutes ago, and this doesn't have to do with this document in particular, we'll let the screen come on, but that the transactions all began occurring on the 21st of September of 2018, correct?
That's how they're identified on the bank records, yes.
Okay. Now we'll wait for the jury's screens to come up, and it looks like it is up, so let's proceed. True that this would have been day 6 of Lynn's hospital stay?
Yes.
Now I want to jump down to the second to last paragraph on the page. Can you read that paragraph to us?
The second to last paragraph on this page.
I guess we're showing 2 pages, sorry. Second to last paragraph on page 516 of the record, which is 511 of the actual document for some reason.
Okay. Met with patient along with Mary Neubauer, LCSW. I introduced the role of palliative medicine and how we help patients and families dealing with serious, potentially life-limiting illnesses and help them to navigate their care in focusing on the whole person, providing emotional, social, and spiritual support, including symptom management, information sharing about what to expect from the illness itself, but available treatment options and what effect those options may have on the disease course, and provide effective communication and caring support.
Can you go ahead and read the paragraph following that?
What's that?
Can you go ahead and read the paragraph that follows that?
She right away seemed upset and talked about refusing to do GI Rex, as she has had a colonoscopy in the past and they found nothing. And she is frustrated that she is having these issues for 5 years and she feels nothing has helped.
And what is palliative care, if you know?
From what I've learned in court, what palliative care is would be assistance. Like, I guess you could go to like a rehabilitation facility. It could consist of assisted living. It could consist of hospice. Obviously, that's my understanding from when I was here in court.
And in the first paragraph that you read, fair to say that they were discussing with her the scope of her medical issues, which included serious, potentially life-limiting illness-related symptoms. Is that true?
I object. That's a misstating of prior testimony and this document.
Overruled, he may answer, given his understanding and being in court throughout the testimony and his role in the investigation.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Fair to say, based on your understanding of this record, hospital workers were having a discussion with Lynn about what it looks like to receive palliative care based on having a potentially life-limiting illness.
Correct.
Thank you. We can take this exhibit down. Now, yesterday you discussed the kind of a pretty broad shift in Lynn's financial behavior beginning September 21st of 2018, true?
I don't know if September 21st was the broad shift of all the financial changes. I know that summer, like June, July, August, I think we documented that there were changes.
Do you recall when the first use of an ATM to withdraw cash was in Lynn's accounts?
I believe that was in September when Lynn was in the hospital.
And fair to say, based on the two statements that we looked at for the 5336 and the money market account, there was no activity on the account until September 21st prior to her, or following her entry into the hospital, correct?
Correct.
So if there were ATM withdrawals for the first time in September of 2018, they had to occur on or after the 21st of September, true?
True.
So fair to say there was a radical shift in repeated ATM withdrawals over the course of several days, many happening on the same day, following the palliative care discussion that Lynn had with hospital staff.
I have no idea when those ATM withdrawals were done. They're indicated by their dates. I don't know how in correlation with that communication about palliative care, when those were necessarily withdrawn.
Fair to say for any of the transactions that occurred, let's say on September 22nd and onward until Lynn's death, those would have followed the discussion about palliative care that Lynn had, true?
Yes, they would have.
And we know from the record that she was upset about this discussion of palliative care and was refusing the recommended treatment options.
From what the medical records I just read stated, yes.
Okay. I'd like to shift gears a little bit and talk about kind of several, honestly, unrelated topics to kind of cover some ground that was discussed over the last several days that you had either involvement in the investigation of or were present for testimony on. Would you consider yourself having the role of lead detective for purposes of the financial aspects of the case?
I would consider myself, yes, of taking over the financial portion of this investigation.
Okay. You were present for Corinne Pose's testimony, correct?
Yes,
Now, one of the issues that you testified to yesterday was that Lynn had a safety deposit box for several years, correct?
correct,
And that up until, I believe, October 4th of 2018, all of the access to it was just Lynn herself, correct?
correct,
But on the 4th of October, the day after Lynn's death, there was an access to the box by both Jesse and Jennifer Flowers, true?
that's correct.
Through the course of your investigation, though, did you learn that the money that had previously been kept in the safety deposit box had been removed by Lynn?
I was unaware exactly how much money or whether money was in that account or in that safe deposit box. There had been communications that there was money. I was unable to ever, I guess, verify what money or what was actually in that box.
So you don't know that money was ever in that box, true?
I can say I honestly don't know.
Fair to say that there was testimony that approximately $50,000 was kept in that box. I believe it would have been by Corinne that you were present for.
Yes,
And as you investigated the financial aspects of this case, you testified yesterday, actually, that you reviewed all of the interviews that were done with Jesse and others by other detectives, true?
I have seen some of them. I can't say I've seen all of them, but yes.
My question for you then is, did you review the recorded interview done by Detective Hoppy of Corinne's interview by police in August of, I believe, 2019?
I can't say I recall that interview particularly.
Okay. We'll move on from that then, thank you. In your investigation of the financial aspects of this case, both relating to Lynn and then Jesse and Jennifer's accounts, you subpoenaed audio, video, and account information for each of the accounts, correct?
I believe, yes, that was all asked for in the subpoenas.
Fair to say that many of the responses indicated that due to retention policies, those weren't available,
That's true.
and only a handful were recovered from all of the different accounts?
That's true.
You also testified of your, I guess, understandings as to Lynn's receipt of income in her Locks by Lynn account.
Yes,
And there was one monthly source of income in particular that she got in that account, true?
that's true.
Was that source of income present from the earliest records you received, I believe, which would have been mid-2016 for that account?
I have to review the records. I know that there was an ongoing payment that she received.
And that was from the Social Security Administration?
Correct.
What is your belief as to what that income was from?
It was just identified as Social Security. That could be a retirement, that could be Social Security. I don't believe she was necessarily old enough, but it could be a disability, it could be anything, but she's getting some type of Social Security benefit from the government.
And as far as you're aware, there's only two ways you can receive money from Social Security, correct? Disability or reaching the
Correct.
age. And how old would she have been in 2016, if you recall?
I believe Lynn would have been 62.
And are you aware that that is too young to receive Social Security as a retirement benefit?
That's true.
Fair to say that this had to have come from Social Security disability.
Absolutely could have. Absolutely could be coming from disability.
And you don't otherwise have any information as to whether she was on disability or why, fair?
I do not.
Now, are you familiar at all with the financial rules surrounding receiving disability through Social Security?
I can't say I know them in detail. I do know some aspects in regards to disability.
Okay, so generally speaking, is it accurate for me to say that an individual receiving Social Security disability is subject to pretty specific income restrictions and asset restrictions?
Yes.
What happens if they go over those income limits or asset limits?
Like I said, I don't know necessarily the limits or how they decide on how much money someone is going to get, but I do know if there are certain, whatever the number is, that your disability or whatever benefit you're getting can be, I think they take it away or suspended or removed for that time. I don't know how that in detail works. I just know that there is formula that they use and numbers that they have in regards to how you would obtain that and maintain that.
So fair to say in summary, if you have too much money or make too much money, you can lose disability entirely?
Absolutely.
Fair to say that the IRS and Social Security share information about an individual's income as reported for taxes?
I would say that's fair to say.
And so an individual that is receiving disability might take measures were they to receive income over the limit to avoid having that income tax or reported as taxable to the IRS, true?
Yes.
Did it strike you as odd at all that the disability payments were coming to Lynn's business account at a separate bank than her personal checking accounts?
Just people have different banks. I figured that was probably the bank she had when she started that. I didn't really look into or notice necessarily why she had that account at that financial institution.
But fair to say that we established earlier, broadly speaking, that account always was $3,000 or less at any given time.
It was a low balance account, yes.
And that was an account, I believe, yesterday you testified, that was used kind of just for monthly expenses. I think there was a Time Warner and an AT&T bill, fair?
That's fair.
Okay, so if someone were looking at that account, they would see an energy payment, true?
True.
A phone bill,
True.
and probably a TV bill, since we know Lynn did not herself have internet to our knowledge.
True.
But other than that, the account was not heavily utilized, true?
That's true.
Okay. Now, you're familiar with various loans that Lynn attempted to obtain in early 2016 or 2018 prior to the Marcus loan, correct?
Various loans.
It might have actually only been one through, I think, BMO Harris. Is that fair?
There was documentation regarding a loan.
Okay. And to your knowledge, Lynn filled that loan application out herself?
As far as I know, yes.
And at that point, as far as you're aware, that loan was denied, true?
I don't know if I was ever able to determine if it was necessarily denied. I just know that the documentation wasn't easy to read. I'm not sure if I remember seeing it actually saying it was denied. I don't believe I could ever attribute a payment from, so it was a BMO. I wasn't able to determine a payment from BMO.
So you didn't see any deposits from proceeds for a loan, nor payments to that loan that would indicate that she received it, true?
True.
I am gonna ask that we post this just to the witness first. It is what has been marked as Exhibit 566.
And when is a good time, since we're approaching 10 o'clock, let me know when it would be a good break to give the jury a break as well with your line of questioning.
You can just do it now, that's fine.
Okay. Since we're on a new exhibit, I think this will be a fine time to take a break, so all rise for the jury, please. Very grateful because right, we'll be in recess until 10:15. I'll put the sidebars on the record when we come back. You did. Oh, you're back on. Right. Did I have one or two sidebars? Oh, just one.
Me, you. A little at the end there, you got a little quicker. Not too bad. The head works.
All right, we are back on the record. Appearances are as they were before. I have one sidebar to put on the record. I believe it was the state that requested the sidebar during cross-exam, and specifically as it relates to Exhibit 600 and questions regarding it. And we had a little bit of a discussion at sidebar just about not only that exhibit, but whether the bank documents themselves should be used versus questioning with round numbers. I indicated I wasn't really going to dictate what parties could do, but we did have the exhibits available. I did confirm, though, that I was sustaining the objection as to Exhibit 600 due to the witness not creating it, nor having an opportunity to review it and compare with the actual records that he has. And ultimately, when we came back on the record, I think Attorney Navreski just continued with his questioning, started utilizing Exhibits 117 and 98, and did questioning on that. So I think I've accurately summarized. It was a little bit more lengthy of a sidebar, so if there's anything either party wants to add to that, please do so from the state.
Nothing from the state, thank you.
Nothing from us either, Your Honor, thanks.
All right, and I think that was the only sidebar, so. I know the subpoenas came in. I had a very brief opportunity to look at them. What I can tell the defense is there's a couple of problems. One is I don't know that I have authority to sign it that quickly, or what the basis is with a turnaround date of would be 24 hours or so, or if you go to the end of the day, add, maybe 8 or 10 hours to that. But it also has the return to my clerk's email, which CCAP would absolutely not like if I did that. I don't think that's proper as well. And then third, why would the defense not simply just do a subpoena ducis tecum for a date next week for when you are presenting the defense? So I'm not saying I want you all to give me arguments right now. Those are just some of the concerns I saw off the top of my head. They'll at least give you an opportunity to look at it and maybe address some of those. I haven't even had an opportunity to read through the statute referenced in the subpoenas. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but I believe both of these are brought pursuant to 80507, and I don't know whether there's any time frame reference in that statute or not. That's certainly something I want to look at. But I can tell you, I'm not going to sign something that has a return via email to my clerk's email address. That's very problematic. But we can take that up after the lunch hour so that both sides have an opportunity to more thoroughly review, okay?
Your Honor, we, at this point, are able to withdraw the one dealing with prison records. We were able to establish what we were looking for there without access to those, so I think we're good on that one.
Okay, so then we're only dealing with the one related to the Department of Health Services.
Correct.
Okay, good to know. All right, anything else I need to address prior to bringing the jury back out?
Not from the state.
Nothing from us.
All right, thank you. We'll bring the jury back out.
All rise for the jury.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Attorney Navreski, then, when you are ready, you may continue with your cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Get this pulled up. And we can publish to the witness, please. All right, this is what has been marked as Exhibit 566. This is part of the authenticated business records from BMO Harris, correct?
That's correct.
And this would have been something that you reviewed in your preparation of this case and your demonstratives on the financial health of Lynn's accounts, true?
That's correct.
And you mentioned that there was a loan application that was hard to read. Is this your understanding of what that loan application was?
Yes.
Okay. I would ask at this point to publish to the jury and to admit 566 if I didn't already ask.
No objection.
Exhibit 566 is received. Permission to publish is granted.
All right, looks like the jury's got it on their screens at this point. So this is the best copy we have of this loan application, true?
That's correct.
When you reviewed this, were you able to make out parts of it despite its fuzziness?
Yes, there were parts that you can make out some things.
Okay, I'm gonna zoom in here just to try and give us a slightly better look at what we're looking here. So this was a loan that Lynn applied for, correct?
Correct.
And looking at what's circled there, I think it says base loan amount. This, I believe, was for approximately $15,000, true? Or 35,000, I'm told. Is that correct?
I can't say exactly what that number is.
If we go up to the first line there, the base loan amount, does that look like a 35,000 to you?
It possibly could be a 3. It's very difficult to read.
Understood. To your knowledge, she didn't get this loan, correct?
I couldn't find anything that I could attribute to a loan being deposited into the accounts that we had.
All right, I'm gonna breeze forward here. And bear with me, I know it's very difficult for us to actually discern. Now, at the top of page 4 of this exhibit, are you able to read the headings of those columns for us, or at least the ones you can make out?
I guess we'll start from left to right. Looks like an income source. Monthly equivalent. I can't read that next line, next box. Well, I guess the third box might be income type. I'd be guessing at the fourth box.
Let's jump forward just to that last box. I think the next two are kind of indecipherable.
That one, I believe, says income amount.
So that would be Lynn listing how much she was earning per month?
I assume that that would necessarily be what she's identifying as a monthly income.
And what amount is shown there, if you can tell?
Difficult to say. I can say maybe that's a 1, so maybe 1,251.
Okay, that's how I read it as well. How much was she receiving from her disability payments every month? Do you recall?
I don't recall the exact amount. I believe checks, if I remember, I remembered some checks. I thought maybe around 800.
Yeah, and that is consistent with the documents we looked at yesterday. So fair to say on this application she was inflating her income by about 50%, if that's the 1251 number that we think it is?
I guess if that is the actual number that is listed there, and the checks that possibly she was inflating, yes. I can't say that that's the number, though.
All right, and we've got a couple other places where it's listed. This box down here that I'm showing you with the mouse, other income, again, that looks to me like 1251.35 maybe. Does that seem accurate?
It appears that first number may be a 1, and I do see possibly a 2 following that. The last 4 are difficult.
Fair to say that the boxes above that are all zeros, though, true?
I would say, yeah, those are zeros.
And from what I can tell, the first one is something employment income fair, that's listed as 0.
Something, yeah, employment income, I could say that, yes.
The next one appears to be overtime, also listed as 0. Same with bonuses, commissions, dividends or interest, and net rental income. Does that look right from your read?
Yeah.
And so the only income she claims is this other income, true?
Yes, it would appear that that's the only box that has anything in it.
And that's consistent with what you know of her employment status in 2016 when this was applied for, or 2018 when this was applied for, correct? She was not working,
As far as I know, no, she was not working.
and the only regular income would have been that disability payment?
Yes.
And if we look down here, describe other income. Can you read the white drop-down box there at the right?
The white box there says Social Security.
Okay, and the number before it in the box appears to be consistent with the number that we've consistently been unable to read accurately, but looks like it's something that starts with a 1,200, correct?
Yeah. There's definitely a 1, I believe, in the first number. It will be consistent with numbers we've somewhat been able to read throughout this document.
So we know if she's claiming 1,000 plus in Social Security income, that's not true, correct?
If I remember the Social Security payments, I believe her checks were less than that.
Thanks. Now I'm moving down to, and I'll scroll out a little bit to see if we can get a better image of this. Can you read that title right there?
I believe that says assets.
Okay, and this would be the part of the one where she lists the amount of money she has in her accounts, correct?
Correct.
Now looking at this, it looks like there are 2 accounts listed, true?
No,
Or 3, I'm sorry. There's one that is in the black box as well, isn't there?
there is.
Okay. Are you able to make out what that first account is, the account number? Or the last 4 of it, just so we can identify it?
The one that's, like, I guess in the bold box?
Yeah.
No. I can make an assumption, but I don't, I think there might be a 3-6 at the end?
Okay. And fair to say we can't really make out the amount in the account at
No.
that point either. Jumping to the next one. Looks like an account ending in 8707 or 9707, is that true?
That's fair.
No money listed in that account, correct?
That's what's listed on here, yes.
And the one that we can kind of make out is checking account ending in 7601, correct?
That's correct.
And that's her money market account, right?
Correct.
And what total is listed for that account?
That looks like $15,010, and I'm gonna say it's either a 71 cents or 21 cents.
And so I'm gonna pull up, give me a minute to find it again. And we can stop publishing it because I'll move this one over, just then confirm with the witness that we're looking at the right one. All right. Are you able to see this?
Yes.
And this is page 97 of Exhibit 98. Do you recognize this as part of the records that you reviewed?
Yes.
And at this point, I would ask that we publish to the jury.
Go ahead.
All right. It looks like the jury has it on their screens now. This is the account statement for the period ending, I believe, February 10th, 2018, correct?
That's correct.
This is for the 701 or 7601 checking, the money market account.
That's correct.
And this is the only account that was listed on this BMO loan application that we could more or less make out, true?
That, yes, so we could see an actual amount, yes.
What is the ending balance as of February 10th, 2018?
As of February 10th, 2018, it indicates $15,011.73.
And I'm going to jump back to 566. And she listed a number that is 15,000 and something. It's not entirely clear what that is, but consistent with what her checking account balance was at the time that this was filled out?
That's correct.
Would that suggest that in March 2018, she knew how much was in her bank account?
I don't recall if those statements were in February. I think this, I can't remember the date on this loan, if this was a March or if we could make out the date of when this actually occurred.
And yeah, let's scroll back and try to find that out. Fair to say that if she were applying prior to March 10th, her most recent statement would be from the exhibit 98, page 97, this account statement ending in February 10th, 2018,
If she were applying for a loan on March 10th?
or prior to getting her next statement.
This would, yeah, I mean, she would have this statement after February 10th of 2018. So anything after February 10th of 2018, this was the statement that we would believe she would use.
Okay, let's jump back to exhibit 566, page 8, and we're going to see if we can decipher this date here. Can you tell what that date is in the date sign that we've got circled?
The month looks like a 2. I honestly can't say what the day would be. Could you scroll out just a little bit?
Yep.
It very well could be 2018. February, I don't know the day. I can't make the day
Fair to
out.
say that it is sometime in the month of February 2018,
Yes,
and that exhibit 98 would have encompassed all of the activity between January 10th and February 10th, but would not include necessarily February 10th to March 10th. Is that true?
that's true.
But if there was account activity that took place after this cutoff date, she still would not have received her March transaction statement.
That's true.
So sometime in February, were she to look up her account balance, this $15,000 amount listed on the loan application would have been what she saw, right?
Correct.
I'm going to scroll down on page 8 of Exhibit 566. Are you able to read what is circled here and the line actually above it that describes what the checkboxes mean?
Yeah. You want me to read it?
If you could, yes.
This application was taken by, and then there's 4, I guess, not drop downs, but I guess options. And it looks like the face-to-face checkbox is marked.
And above that, it says to be completed by interviewer, so someone that worked at the bank would have filled this part out, correct?
The way it's written, yes, I would assume that someone from the bank would have had to do this.
And someone at the bank that was completing this loan face-to-face would have verified the identity of Lynn. True?
I would hope so.
Now, looking at this document, do you have any reason to believe that Lynn did not go and apply for this loan herself in person?
Looking at this document, no, I have no reason not to believe.
And just to reiterate, as far as we are aware, this loan was not paid out and likely then was not approved. True?
I couldn't find a payment from a loan, so I can't say.
And
I
we
don't
have
see anything in her accounts.
And we have the complete records from BMO on all of Lynn's accounts for this time period, regardless of the type, correct?
Correct.
So, safe to assume, had this loan been paid out and a new account created, we would have those records.
If this loan was paid out, yes. I can't say if it was denied, approved, and she decided not to. I can't say that, but it does appear that this loan was applied for.
Thank you. And we can take this down. And based on your understanding of the case, after this loan was either denied or declined, not paid out, Lynn applied for the Marcus loan.
That Lynn applied for that loan?
Correct.
The Marcus Goldman Sachs loan?
Correct.
No.
You can't say she did not apply for it, though, can you?
I believe, based upon the statements and the investigation, that Lynn did not apply for that loan.
that doesn't answer my question. You cannot say for certain that Lynn did not participate or approve or partake in the application process for that loan, true?
True.
And you cannot say for certain that at least $9,900 of the proceeds of that loan very likely could have originated from the proceeds of the Marcus loan, true?
I would have a hard time saying very likely, but I can't say that $9,900 cannot be attributed to the $30,000 loan.
And you have identified no other plausible source for that $9,900, correct?
I have not identified a source of where that money came from.
Okay. And fair to say that this loan was applied for sometime, it looked like, in mid to late February? Based
I would
on-
say the loan was applied for in February at some point, yes.
And we know that the Goldman Sachs loan was dispersed March 8th, 2018, correct?
Per the records, yes.
And we know also that it was applied for at, or prior to that by some number of days, true?
Correct.
So likely at most a few weeks passed between Lynn applying in person for this loan that was for whatever reason not paid out and the application in her name using false income information was applied to with Goldman Sachs, true?
That was a long question. Can you repeat it?
Right. So about 2 weeks passed between this loan being denied and the Goldman Sachs disbursement, true?
True.
Okay. And this loan and the Goldman Sachs loan both used false income information that inflated Lynn's income, correct?
The Goldman Sachs, yes, they both did. The Goldman Sachs was extremely inflated.
Yet the Goldman Sachs one was approved, true?
Absolutely was approved.
We can take that exhibit down, thank you. You testified yesterday that Lynn did not receive any food stamps requests to your knowledge, correct?
To my knowledge, she did not.
Did you specifically attempt to determine whether or not she did by subpoenaing records?
No.
And food stamps are typically now issued on a debit card that the recipient gets, correct?
That's correct.
And those transactions would not be reflected on someone's personal bank statements, true?
I don't believe they would be.
Okay. In your preparation for this case, did you review any of the handwritten notes / documents that are depicted in the scene photographs at Lynn's house?
I would have seen, yes, some of the documents that were obtained, or at least from the scene photos.
Are you aware that several of those contain references to a Quest card?
I can't say that I recall that.
And as far as you're aware, no one's ever recovered a Quest card, true?
That's true.
But nobody would have been looking for one at the time. Is that also true?
No, there would have been no reason to look for a Quest card.
Thank you. When we're talking about kind of your investigation and approach to trying to verify kind of the flow of money, especially when it comes to cash being withdrawn and spent elsewhere after a check has come into Jesse's account, for example, what steps did you take to try to determine where the cash was spent?
Just by using the bank statements, the transaction statements.
So several of the checks that you discussed yesterday have memo notes in them that list things like a car payment or car repairs, true?
True.
Did you take any steps to try to verify whether Jesse ever made cash payments at a car repair place, for example, to try to trace that income?
I can't say that I checked into any cash transactions.
Fair to say that yesterday we went through numerous examples of checks from Cone Law Office, for example, that you testified that you don't see any transactions on Jesse's account that would correspond with that memo in the check.
That's true.
Did you ever try to subpoena or request records from Cone Law Office to determine whether Jesse had paid bills there using cash or, for example, a cashier's check, a money order?
No.
So the extent of your attempts to trace that money was to review the records that we had, see that cash was taken out, and then just kind of assume we don't have a way to follow up on that cash, correct?
That, so cash was withdrawn from, you mean Ms. Kraszewski's account?
Correct.
No, I used the transaction history, so money would go in, and then I'd see the money go out from the transaction history. I can't say if she did any cash withdrawals, if those cash withdrawals would have gone to any of the, I guess, the checks that were issued, to verify if some of those checks, if any of those monies would have been paid by cash to any of the, like the Cone office or any of the other things that were documented in those checks.
Okay, and that was something that you did not attempt to follow up on to determine, correct?
That's correct.
Speaking of the memo lines of checks, fair to say that if someone were to give me a check, other than for like services rendered, the memo line doesn't dictate what I can do with that check as gift money, true?
Is it a gift?
If someone were to,
Why, if the check, I don't know if the check doesn't have anything written down, I don't know what the check is intended for.
if someone were to write me a check for whatever reason and they intend to give me $2,000 and think I'm going to use it on a car payment, am I limited to using that money to pay my car payment?
Depends if that's how you got the check, if that's how you obtained it.
And so that would require you to have facts that are outside of the purview of just looking at the financial records available to us, true?
I would have to talk to the person that issued the check.
So without talking to them, you would have no way to either confirm or dispel the notion, I guess, that it was a fraudulent transaction or procured in a way that was wrongful, right?
Without talking to the individual that issued the check, I'm unable to determine that.
Fair to say you could not and did not talk to Lynn about the memos on any of these checks, whether this money was being given to Jesse as a gift or elsewise, correct?
I did not speak to Lynn at all in regards to the checks that were issued out of her accounts.
So a lot of your opinions regarding whether transactions look suspicious are just kind of based on your gut feeling, having reviewed all the transactions and Lynn's patterns of life, as you put it, true?
My opinions were based off the transaction history in the accounts that I reviewed.
Okay, thank you. Now, I just want to clarify something we kind of touched on earlier today. Is it true that you do not know the exact amount that Lynn inherited from her mom after her mom's death?
That is true.
Also true that the records that we have as of June 2014 don't show those transactions coming in. They're already there, true?
That's true.
What is the basis for your belief or understanding that it was around $250,000?
That was the information that I had received when I started with the case. They believed that money was an inheritance from Lynn's mother or her parents,
Who did you receive that information from?
from other investigators in the case.
Okay, so that was just a number that someone at some point obtained or received or believed, and that was just kind of the basis of the assumptions made when reviewing the financials?
In regards to the money coming, it was where the money originated?
Just the amount of the inheritance?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Now, I want to pivot to kind of Lynn's patterns of life broadly in, I guess, the last year of her life, 2018.
Okay.
Repeatedly referenced yesterday was the fact that based on your review of the records, Lynn's activities were largely confined to the Waukesha County area, Pewaukee and Waukesha especially, true?
That's true.
But we do know that Lynn also enjoyed, for example, going out to lunch with Anthony. I believe Anthony testified to having met Lynn for lunch in West Allis in 2018. Is that true?
That's true.
So, knowing that Lynn primarily used cash, are we limited in how broadly we can make assumptions based on the kind of repeated transactions in her accounts as to like geographically where she was going?
The accounts, yeah, I can't determine where she spent cash. The accounts and the determinations of geological or geographical locations were based upon the transactions indicated in the account.
And so there's nothing that you have reviewed in the records that would make you think that Lynn did not frequent areas of Milwaukee or West Dallas, for example?
I can't say she did not.
Okay. Let's turn to kind of a completely unrelated issue from the financials, another area of the case that you were involved in and presumably have reviewed records on, handwriting samples.
Okay.
And so you're aware in this case that the defense wanted handwriting samples to be evaluated to determine the legitimacy of the handwritten wills and handwritten documents left by Lynn, true?
True.
True that Waukesha County's lab and the state crime lab are not qualified to carry out those services?
That's true.
And that the FBI had to be brought in to do that?
That's true.
And also true that the FBI essentially told us that in order for the FBI to do that, it had to be requested through law enforcement channels, and that they could not do it at the request of the defense alone.
That's true.
Now, did you become involved with procuring what were known confirmed handwriting samples of Lynn for the FBI?
Yes.
And that included requesting any handwritten documents from both Corrine and Anthony that Lynn would have written at some point?
Yes.
Did you ask them for all of the handwritten documents from Lynn that you had, or that they had, or specific ones? How did you go about that?
There were a lot of handwritten documents already in, I guess, in our possession at that point. But there were, I don't know if we necessarily said bring everything, or if you can just bring us some handwriting samples that you have with Lynn's original writing.
And the ones that were already in your possession, were those copies or originals?
Well, there were some copies, and I believe there were some originals.
Now, the FBI did their analysis, true?
Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to review kind of the findings of that?
I didn't really go through the findings of it.
Are you aware that the FBI opined that additional confirmed handwriting?
calls for hearsay.
Your Honor, he's been testifying as to kind of collective knowledge he's gained from other officers' work about the investigation.
I presume you're not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted, but to determine what, if anything, this particular witness did with the information.
Correct.
With that understanding, he may answer the question.
And I don't plan to get into the details of what the conclusions were. Fair to say the FBI opined that having additional confirmed original as opposed to copies, handwritten samples from Lynn would have increased the accuracy of their analysis. True?
I honestly don't know.
Okay. So your involvement ended after you gathered the records originally, right?
We gathered the records, and then we ended up, I assisted in obtaining Ms. Kraszewski's handwriting exemplars.
Okay. But no follow-up after the FBI had done their analysis to attempt to obtain additional samples, true?
No.
And you were present, I believe 2 days ago now, when Anthony Posa testified that he had numerous samples of Lynn's writing still at his house?
I believe I heard him say that, yes.
And you don't recall whether you asked him for all samples or just some, so that's not inconsistent with what you believed you were getting?
No.
Okay. You mentioned that you assisted in obtaining handwriting samples from Jesse, right?
Correct.
Isn't it true that you had several, countless at that point, letters that were handwritten by Jesse to various players within kind of the investigation?
Yes.
Yet Jesse voluntarily provided several handwriting samples for you and for investigators, true?
It was a request for the FBI.
And several individuals were present for that, correct?
Yes.
And all of you were kind of sitting there watching, I assume?
Yeah, I believe I was the one that was reading, I guess, the excerpts of the letters that were requested, because they wanted certain sections to have Ms. Kraszewski, like me read them to her, she write them out. We did that multiple times.
Okay, so you were dictating what sections the FBI wanted samples of, true?
They were sections that were decided between defense and the state in regards to.
Okay. And several other people were just there to observe?
I I can't recall exactly who was there. I know I was there. I believe representatives from the state and then also representatives from defense.
So Jesse's writing out these handwriting samples essentially while several people just kind of stand and watch her, true?
Yeah.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that. We can get into kind of the implications of that with another witness. But since you kind of handled that process, I wanted to get your input on it. And I would like to show you another exhibit that was introduced, I believe, early in the trial. It's a state's exhibit. And if we can publish this if it's not already. Is it on your screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. This is marked as State's Exhibit 19. It was admitted while you were here observing trial, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Now,
It's on the screen, but wait for the jury.
Oh, perfect. All right, we're good. We've got the jury screens up. I'm going to zoom in here and see what we've got. And this was a photo of Lynn's, I guess, personal papers and important financial documents, correct?
From yes.
Sorry. And
I defer that.
Thank you.
yeah. And there's reference in this to having received a denial letter, true?
That's what appeared, some sort of denial letter, yes.
And so that would have been consistent with receiving a denial letter from the loan that we discussed today, from BMO?
I have no idea if that's, would be associated with BMO.
A denial for some loan, though. Fair?
It says there's a denial letter, yes.
Okay. And if you go and read the handwritten text that's kind of underneath the denial letter, can you read through what that says?
Put through as regular loan with no corrections on new packet.
Okay, so fair to say that based on the note, this was a denial letter for a loan that she intended to reapply for with no corrections in it, true?
From what's written, yes, that's what's written on this envelope.
Thank you, we can take that down. Thank you. Sorry for the little delay there. That is all I have for you.
All right, thank you. Any redirect?
Yes, Judge. Detective Clennis, and can we bring up exhibits 98? Actually, I'm sorry, before we bring it up, I'd like to show exhibit 224 to just the witness, please. Detective, can you let me know when that pops up on your screen?
All right, it's on.
Do you know what we're looking at there?
Yes.
What is it?
This would be the signature card for the 9707 BMO Harris account for Lynn Hernan.
Okay. Is this a fair and accurate and complete record of the accounts for, I'm sorry, the financial records for that account?
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd move exhibit 224 into evidence and ask to publish.
No objection.
Exhibit 224 is received permission to publish is granted.
Now, Detective Plennis, it's been pointed out, and I know it's slowly popping up on the jury screen, so I'm not gonna scroll through it yet. But to use our time wisely, this is an account you and I did not discuss, if we can believe that, yesterday.
That is true.
And do you recall why we did not address this with all the other financial accounts?
There wasn't much activity, and the activity was old.
Okay, and in fact, if we flip down, and I'm sorry, actually, on page 2, if we go to page 2, what is the first statement BMO Harris gave you, again, in response to your subpoena?
The first statement is June 23rd of 2014 through July 22nd of 2014.
But to be fair, if we look at the, almost all the way to the bottom of what's on your screen, do you see previous balance as of June 22nd, 2014?
Yes.
What is that total?
$182,360.86.
So fair to say this account went or existed previous to June 23rd of 2014?
I'm sorry.
Is it fair to say this account existed prior to this monthly statement?
Yes.
And yesterday you explained why you and law enforcement have to sort of narrow your subpoenas to a specific time frame, correct?
Correct.
Okay. This is the first monthly statement you received in this account, though.
Yes.
Okay, if we could flip down to page 12. I'm sorry, can we go down to page 13? I apologize. Do you see what this is, Detective Plennis?
Yes.
And what is this?
This would be a transfer or a deposit ticket of for monies.
Okay, and how much is that amount being transferred?
That's $181,815.58.
And if we switch to Exhibit 98 quickly, specifically page 10. And I'm sorry, if we scroll up to page 9. How did I get that wrong? Sorry, Mr. Balconier, could you keep scrolling up to the October 2014? Page 3. Can you go to page 3, Mr. Balconier? All right, Detective Plennis, on page 3, yesterday you noted that this money market account in Exhibit 98 was opened with 2 deposits.
Correct.
Does one of those deposits match the transfer you just talked about from Exhibit 224?
Yes.
Okay, so when Attorney Navreski was asking you about accounts being depleted and things like that, in early 2014, this money market account did not exist yet.
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't as though Ms. Hernan just lost $100,000 or even $180,000. It was just transferred to start this money market account.
Correct.
So as of October 1st of 2014, that 9707 account in 224 no longer had any money.
Correct.
And from the records you got related to the 9707 account, did it ever have money put into it again?
No.
Okay. And you see the other deposit that opened up Exhibit 98, that money market account?
Yes.
And what is the amount there?
$68,184.42.
Could we please go to page 10 of Exhibit 117? Detective Plennis, on page 10, do you see a corresponding number of $68,000 some odd dollars?
Yes.
And where is that?
That is on October 1st in the 5336 BMO checking account.
Okay. And after that, does that appear to be the second deposit that starts the money market account?
Yes.
And even after that transfer or withdrawal, as it's called here, is made, what's the ending balance of that checking account?
As of October 19th of 2014,
Yes, sir.
the ending balance is $70,000 $811.73.
Okay, so now that you've gotten to see the actual figures on these actual accounts, earlier it was brought up, did Ms. Hernan just sort of deplete her accounts? Would you agree or disagree with that, now having seen the numbers?
No. She moved money from one
I
account.
object and want a sidebar on this.
All right, hold on, please. I'm going to sustain the objection, strike the response that was started to be given, and ask the state to rephrase.
Detective, would you agree, at least as of October 2014, when that money market account is opened with the two deposits, it does not appear Ms. Hernan depleted any accounts at that point?
Correct.
Okay. And it was asked to go sort of to that March 2016, where you noted that money market is first touched, correct?
Correct.
And if we can go, and I forgot to write down the page number on 117 for the March 2016 balance. Well, I'm sorry, before we do that, while we're still up on page 10, Detective, after that $68,000 comes out of this account and goes to the money market account, do you see additional withdrawals?
Yes.
And what amounts do you have there?
There is a $9,000 withdrawal on October 10th and a $2,000 withdrawal on October 17th.
And again, before moving on, while we're talking about account ending 5336, did Ms. Hernan have like any independent income directly going into this account? What I mean by that is Social Security payments or paychecks or anything monthly that was automatically going into this account.
I don't believe so.
Okay, and yesterday you talked about a number of transfers from the money market account into this 5336 account, correct?
Correct.
Again, you were explaining about how money markets work. Why were these transfers coming into this checking account?
Money transfers from 7601 into 5336 due to bill pay transaction limits on money market accounts.
And this is the account Ms. Hernan was paying her bills primarily through?
Yes.
Okay. Could we go to the page 58, please? Thank you. And this is where Attorney Navreski was asking you about this end balance of $20,111.69.
Yes.
Okay, so in this intervening 18 months, 17 months or so, between October of 2014 and March of 2016, approximately $50,000 has come out of this account.
Correct.
Okay. And you've been in court when both Anthony and Corrine Posa talked about this amount of money Lynn talked to them about?
Yes.
You recall what amount of money that was?
I believe it was around $50,000.
Okay. So, and you would agree that in addition to paying bills, Ms. Hernan was sort of taking cash withdrawals out of this account?
This account seemed to be a account she used to make purchases.
Okay. I want to go to Exhibit 541, shifting gears a little bit. Detective Plennis, you were asked to talk about some medical records today, and Attorney Navreski had you read a very specific portion of page 516. Can we scroll down that page a little bit? Not that far, I'm sorry. Okay, and can you just, in addition to what you read for Attorney Navreski, could you just read that top paragraph, reason for consult?
Patient has chronic abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea. Unable to eat anything result in AKI with CR to 5, but workup so far just all negative. She in tears a lot due to pain and looked distressed. Please help with symptom control.
And if you could, a few lines down where you see the number 6 with an F/U, could you read what that says, please?
Will sign off as no palliative needs.
So that's the palliative team indicating there are no palliative needs.
Correct.
And if we could go to 520 of that same exhibit, please. And if you could scroll all the way to the bottom, please, Mr. Vulcan. All right, right there is great. Detective, can you read that last paragraph?
30 minutes total time with greater than 50% spent of counseling. We, the palliative care team, appreciate the opportunity to participate in the patient's care and will continue to follow. We have discussed out findings and recommendations with the referring provider and with the other team members.
So no life-limiting illnesses, and basically a 30-minute time frame where palliative care was even discussed.
Correct.
And ultimately, it was found not to be needed for Ms. Hernan.
Correct.
Okay, let's put that exhibit down, please. Can we bring up exhibit 566, please? And I would ask to publish it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just wait for it to be on the jury screens because it is very hard to read. Thank you. Detective, you said you could not tell if this was an approved loan or denied or declined of some sort, right?
That's correct.
Do you see that box that's on the form in the middle of the page that's displayed on page 2 of Exhibit 566?
Yes.
If you see the sort of column of words, can you see the last 2 in the row of 5?
Yes.
Can you make out what those 2 lines say?
Is that the enable full product eligibility checking and allow product selection for denial only?
Okay, I think we're looking at different parts of the form. I'm looking in that box section on the right side in the middle of the page.
Okay.
You see that now?
Yep.
I'm sorry. Do you see the words to the left side of that box?
Yes.
Okay, the last 2 lines, can you make out what those words are?
Disbursement date and first payment date?
And does it appear to have dates written in next to those 2 words?
There's something in those boxes.
Okay, next to the words disbursement date and something about a payment date, correct?
Correct.
You can't make out what the date is by chance?
I can't.
Okay. You said earlier that you searched Miss Hernan's bank records for any amount from a loan, 15,000 or 35, whatever that number is. You searched for it, right?
Yes.
No loan of any amount from BMO Harris went into any of Miss Hernan's accounts.
Not that I could find.
And this was a face-to-face application, you said.
That's what it states.
I noticed BMO Harris did not give you anything about what ID was used.
No.
Could you even tell whether it be a state ID card as opposed to a driver's license or something like that?
Not that I could see.
Okay. And you've been in court to hear that Ms. Krzyzewski, in fact, has used other people's identities in person to apply for loans.
Correct?
Okay. So when Attorney Navreski asked you, I think he said, based on this document, does it appear Lynn Hernan filled out this application, correct?
Correct?
I want to ask you, based on your entire investigation, do you have any reason to doubt Lynn Hernan made this application?
There is reason to doubt, yes.
Okay. We can take that down, thank you. Ultimately, Detective, and I am wrapping up, I promise. Regardless of whether it be Lynn's mother's inheritance or maybe even her father's or a different source of income that led to that $250,000, does that matter at all to your investigation of the theft of that money?
No.
Does anything the defense team brought up with you today change your opinion on these changes in pattern of Lynn Hernan's life?
No.
And what did those changes mean to you in your investigation?
The changes meant that Lynn wasn't using these accounts. This money was being taken from her accounts.
And earlier it was asked of you, typically you might ask a person who wrote out a check what they wanted or what they intended a check to be used for, correct?
Correct?
And obviously you were not able to do that in this case.
Correct?
Does that mean you can never determine if a victim consented to money being taken?
Correct?
So why did you look at all these financial records and why did you look at patterns of life if you knew you could never talk to Lynn Hernan and just say, hey, what did you want with these?
Because to identify where this money went, to see why it was being taken out, to see why it was being spent that way.
Okay. And in your review of all these changes and patterns of life, did you come to some opinion about what was going on with these financial accounts?
Yes?
And what was that?
That these accounts were being used by Jesse Krzyzewski.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Detective, you may step down. Let me excuse the jury. I want to talk with the attorneys about our schedule and start with another witness or just simply break early for the lunch hour. So all rise for the jury. All right, thank you. Be seated. I do have a sidebar to put on the record as well. The sidebar was requested by Attorney Navreski regarding a question that was asked by the state during redirect. The defense believed that the question did not accurately relate back to answers the detective gave during cross, given the time frame that Attorney Navrusky was questioning, my understanding, between 2014 and 2016, that being Attorney Navrusky's questions earlier on this topic. I indicated I was going to sustain the objection based upon the ambiguity in it and not referencing a specific time frame. So I didn't get to the ultimate issue that was raised by Attorney Navrusky, but and then ultimately the state, I guess, rephrased the question. I did strike the portion of the answer that was already given at the time the objection was made. Anything the state wants to add to the sidebar?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Anything from the defense?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, now, I'm not sure where the state is at. Obviously, I've let the parties know I need to take an earlier lunch break today, and I did let the jury know that it's due to a schedule issue that I have over the lunch hour, so they are aware that I needed to stop at about 11:30, and I don't really want to start a witness with 10 minutes. So that's why I indicated I would talk to the parties. But I don't know who your next witness is, so I assume it's not a short witness, but let me know.
Go ahead.
No. It's not.
Judge, to give you the landscape, we have 3 more witnesses. I think they're all somewhat on the lengthier side.
All right. I presume there's no objection to starting a witness, knowing that I need to take the break in 10 minutes from the defense.
No objection.
All right, so we'll take our lunch break now. Unfortunately, I don't think I can get back until about 1:15, so you all will have an extended lunch hour, and we'll be back here. I'm hoping I'm back by 1:15, but be back here ready to go, and hopefully it's not any longer than that. So we are in recess. Thanks, everyone.
Josh,